All's fair in love and war, at least when it comes to the World Aeronautics and Robotics Corporation. And yes, that does indeed spell war, which means today on Ancient DOS Games we're doing One Must Fall 2097. And you'll forgive me if I sound like I'm dying or something, but I had some kind of respiratory virus and I'm still recovering from it. To put it simply though, One Must Fall 2097 is not only one of the best fighting games ever released on a PC, but one of the best fighting games ever released, period. This game is very easy to play, has a wide variety of options and difficulty levels, a tournament mode where you can create your own character and build them up to incredible levels of prowess. Compared to modern fighting games, the only thing this game's missing is 3D graphics. And since all the robots and arenas were actually pre-rendered in 3D Studio, it comes pretty close to that. So before we go any further, let's take a look at the game stats. One Must Fall 2097 was developed by Diversions Entertainment and published by Epic Mega Games in 1994. It's a 1 to 2 player fighting game and features VGA 320 by 200 256 color graphics. It supports multiple sound cards, and while it does support Sound Blaster sound, the Gravis Ultrasound mode is actually better because it's more reliable and less susceptible to speed anomalies which can show up in the various Sound Blaster modes. As for its release date, this game actually only stayed shareware for about 5 years. Roughly around when the sequel was announced, the full version was made freeware and has thus been free to download since roughly February of 1999. Since it's been free for so long now, it's actually really easy to find the full version. But I'll go ahead and recommend that same place I always do again, the RGB Classic Games website at www.classicdosgames.com. So in the future, presumably 87 years from now, the War Corporation hosts many combat and tournament opportunities using special robots called HARs, an acronym which simply stands for Human Assisted Robot. Each HAR actually forms a mental link with a host body that is situated in a relatively nearby area. That way if the HAR gets damaged or destroyed, the person controlling it remains very much alive. And considering the awesome power these robots command, it's no surprise that not only are they used for productive purposes, but also to scrap the living shrapnel out of each other for fame and glory. However, War's been looking to colonize Ganymede, one of the moons of Jupiter, and wants a representative to go out there and take command of the entire thing. But they're not quite sure who to send. Since there's lots of possible candidates, War decides to have them all fight for the right to the moon, which means you get to take control of one of 10 different people, each with their own reasons for pursuing this illustrious position. First, there's Crystal Devroe, who's entered the tournament to find out more about her father's death. Stefan Tomaz, who's been spoiled by fame and money, and all he's missing now is power. Milano Angston, a famous kickboxer and bodyguard who's entered the tournament to try and restore the company to its honorable beginnings. Christian Devroe, Crystal's older brother, who's entered the tournament partly to protect his sister by winning against her, but also to seek vengeance for their father's death on his own accord. Shiro, who's the head of public relations for War and looks at this tournament as an opportunity to expand the entertainment potential of HAR combat. Jean-Paul, a quiet, cold, calculating genius of sorts, who's competing in the tournament to get off the radar of all the people inside War who want him to submit himself for genetic research. Can't say I blame him. Ibrahim, a HAR designer who sees Ganymede as a great place to inspire and create new HAR designs. Angel, a mysterious person with no prior HAR experience who is secretly competing in an effort to protect Ganymede from War's clutches. Cosette Akira, a handicapped individual who loves piloting HARs because it frees her from her crippled body. And finally, Raven, who serves as bodyguard to Major Krysak, the person who's led War to profit and success. Raven, however, knowing the truth of the situation, seeks to go beyond Major Krysak and secure the power of War for himself. So yeah, it's typical fighting game fare, what'd you expect? But it's done really well, and unlike most fighting games which go from choosing a fighter into the action, choosing your fighter here only determines your 3 basic stats: power, speed, and endurance. Basically the damage you can do, the speed you can move at, and your ability to withstand damage. Then you get to choose your HAR, of which there are 10 you can pilot. The Jaguar, which is an all-around capable fighting machine, the Shadow, which is lightning quick and can project false images of itself to aid in combat, the Thorn, which is extremely powerful but not very defensible, the Pyros, which uses its flame jets to glide through the air and protect itself from attack, the Electra, which has 2 projectile attacks and all-around good offensive and defensive capabilities, the Katana, a deadly robot with attacks that are very difficult to dodge, the Shredder, which is extremely agile and is the only HAR to have a get-up attack, the Flail, which is a very unique robot that runs on a pair of wheels like a Segway and swings its flails to deal damage at extreme range. the Gargoyle, which has unprecedented jumping control and can easily knock opponents out of the sky, and finally the Kronos, a Har that not only has teleportation capabilities, but can also manipulate time to some extent, allowing it to momentarily freeze enemies in place. Also, even though each combatant has their own special colors for their Hars, pushing the 1 through 6 keys up above the alpha keys will allow you to change the colors of the Hars to whatever you want, which adds that extra special touch of personalization to your death machine. Now there is actually one more Har, the Nova, but through the course of normal gameplay, the only way you'll ever get to fight with it is in the tournament mode, unless you take advantage of a secret code. This leads us into the game's extreme number of features, most of which are hidden. Now, this is only a guess on my part, since I didn't own the game back when it was new, but there was a strategy guide you could buy that would give you the entire move list, and my guess is that a lot of the hidden features of the game were revealed in this guide as well, to either help sell more copies of the guide or sell more copies of the game, or both. And this would explain why pretty much none of the game's special features are mentioned in-game. For example, the normal difficulty levels are Punching Bag, Rookie, Veteran, World Class, and Champion, but there's actually 2 more difficulty levels. To access deadly skills, simply set the difficulty to Champion, and keep pressing the button to make it go higher until it finally gives in and puts you on Deadly. Then to go even higher, simply hold O, M, and F on your keyboard all at once, then just make the skill level go up 1 more higher to Ultimate. Now, this is just one of the many hidden features in this game, and I recommend that anybody who wants to try this game really needs to read through an FAQ first, not only to get the move list, but also to see just what features are available. And I also recommend that fighting game experts access the hidden advanced options menu and enable re-hit mode, which will allow you to hit an airborne enemy more than once, so long as you mix up the moves you perform, thus giving you, and your opponent, many combo opportunities that aren't normally present. Another neat feature about this game are the hazards. There's 5 different arenas you can fight in, and each arena has potential hazards that can alter the way the game plays out. Though the stadium is just an open playing field and has no hazards, unless you count the changing lighting based on where you're standing. Then there's the Spike Pit, which has 5 spikes that can shoot out from the back and make life miserable for whoever they perforate. The Power Plant has electrified walls that will shock any opponent that hits them, breaking many combo potentials and forcing a different approach for dealing maximum damage. The Fire Pit has orbs that float around, which, when struck, will send a ball of fire up from below to burn your opponent. And lastly, there's the Desert, where waves of fighter jets will make strafing runs, which don't really do much damage, but will eat away at the stun bars of whatever Hars they hit. Wow, I've already gone on this long and I haven't even talked about the general gameplay yet. Really though, there's not much to say. You have basic movement controls, a punch button, and a kick button. To perform light punches and kicks, you push forwards, and to perform heavy punches and kicks, you pull backwards. To block, you simply pull back, or to block low, you pull back and down. To throw, you push forwards and punch while very close to your opponent, and I should note that the throwing range is actually different for each Har, with the Pyros and Flail having the furthest reaches, and the Flail actually has a second special throw, which is really powerful. You can also get some extra height when you jump if you duck first before jumping. And each Har also has between 3 and 5 various special attacks they can perform, some of which can be performed in both a standard variety and a special hyper variety if you set the fighting mode to hyper in the options. The hyper variation of a move basically allows you to perform it while in midair, perform a shadow version of the move which goes faster and or gets extra hits, or permits both the midair and the shadow variations. It also gives you some control over projectile attacks as well. The icing on the cake, though, are the scrap moves and the destruction moves. And you've probably already seen a few on screen by now, but basically at the end of combat when a winner is declared, the right combination of buttons will engage a scrap move, which will basically beat up the opponent a little. However, during this scrap move, you can put in yet another combination, usually in time with the actual scrap move itself, and doing this correctly will result in a destruction move, which will basically obliterate either the upper half of the opponent's Har, or the opponent's Har in its entirety. Beyond the spectacle of performing these moves though, they're actually worth a considerable amount of points, which helps for making high scores, but in the tournament mode your score becomes bonus money to spend, so learning to perform these scrap and destruction moves is essential to getting as much money as possible in the tournament mode. Actually, before we discuss the tournament mode, let's take a look at every destruction move in the game and rank them as either weak, average, or awesome. Ready? And just for fun, let's go backwards through the roster.
Round 1.
Fight.
Okay, so let me clarify what just happened there. In the story mode, you can actually fight two secret characters known as Fire and Ice. To reach them, you not only have to successfully do a destruction move in the Fire Pit arena, but you also need to do one more special button combination after or during the destruction move itself. So yes, one move for Scrap, one move for Destruct, and one more move to get to Fire and Ice, and it all has to be done right after winning a match. Suffice to say, don't expect to fight these special characters your first time through. In fact, don't expect to get to Ice at all unless you're playing on Ultimate difficulty level, because any skill level less and Ice doesn't even show up. So now that we've seen some robots blow up in harsh Mortal Kombat ways, let's talk about the aspect of this game that will keep you playing for hours on end, the Tournament mode. In this mode, you create your own character and choose a mugshot for them, and you actually have 4 completely different difficulty selections from the usual. Curiously though, the highest difficulty you can select here right from the get-go is equivalent to the secret Ultimate difficulty level. So first you create your character, and yeah, I know, I've done this way too many times now, and you always start with a Jaguar since it's the least expensive HAR and also the easiest to use. As you gain money, you can buy different HARs, including the Nova, and you can upgrade their various stats such as arm and kick power, arm and kick speed, armor, and stun resistance. However, you need to be careful in upgrading your HARs, since doing so will increase the cost of repairs after each battle. Your alternative to HAR upgrades is personal training to improve your 3 basic stats. Unlike HAR upgrades, this training stays with you forever, even if you buy a new HAR, but training is generally more expensive and has less of an overall effect on your fighting capabilities. Generally speaking, I recommend taking a buy whatever's cheapest approach, unless you know what trait you fight best with. I personally prefer increased speed with a balance between power and endurance, so I try to get my speed ratings as high as possible, as fast as possible. One of the neat things with the tournament mode is that you don't have to fight your opponents right away and risk your money and prestige. There's actually a simulation mode where you can practice against any opponent as part of a tournament you've registered for. Then when you're ready, you can go for the real fight. Combat in tournament mode only lasts for a single round, so you gotta make it count. Win or lose though, you take home any bonus money you get from your score. And if you lose, most, all, or more than those bonuses are going to go towards your repair costs. So always make sure to keep a little money on the side just in case. If you lose and can't afford your repair bills, the most expensive upgrade your HAR has is going to be automatically sold off to pay for the repairs. And if you can't afford your repair bills at all twice in a row, it's back to the bleachers for you. If that ever happens to you, I recommend choosing a lower skill level, at least until you get better at the game. Another neat aspect of the tournament mode is unranked challengers. These fights come up under various conditions, sometimes completely at random, but are generally triggered by performing scrap and destruction moves, thus indicating your aptitude for the game. You can choose not to fight an unranked challenger if you don't want to, but doing so and winning will net you a ton of money. And of course, losing will add 1 loss to your record. So if you're trying to go for an undefeated run through the tournaments, you may want to avoid the first or second unranked challengers just to be on the safe side. I mean, since you saw already, when you start the tournament mode, you have very little in the way of physical prowess. That said, the unranked challengers tend to have extra abilities that even the story mode doesn't display, and leaving little to nothing left of the challengers' robots can actually score you those special components to use for your own benefit. As you get further and further in the tournament mode, the battles are going to get very fast and very challenging. Each time you enter a new tournament, the overall skill of your opponents will increase dramatically, and by the end of the 4 tournaments you can compete in, everyone, including yourself, will be moving lightning fast, pulling off insane combos and winning battles in record time. But it's all in good fun, and you even pit your tournament fighters up against other players' tournament fighters, which can lead to some epic 2-player action. So yeah, I may have praised the heck out of this game, but there are some negatives, mostly in the form of balancing issues and the fact that so many of the features require multiple special moves or hidden key combinations. The only thing that bugs me more than anything though is that sometimes the blocking doesn't work. I'm serious, sometimes blocking simply doesn't register. I don't know if it's a bug or intentional or what, but it's the only real blemish on a game that's otherwise flawless. Well, okay, I will admit, some of the special moves aren't programmed very well. Like, this is a game where I recommend you actually play with a keyboard. The reason is because some of the special moves, mostly the scrap and destruction moves, actually require you to press buttons in a strange or unintended way. For example, Nova's scrap move is supposedly quarter circle back, then forwards plus punch. But this rarely works. I've actually discovered that the real move is quarter circle back, punch, then forwards. Yeah. Or here's another example. The Gargoyle's destruction move, which you perform immediately after hitting your opponent with a scrap move, is supposedly down, up, down plus punch. It's actually down, up, down, punch, not down plus punch. It's little idiosyncrasies like this which make it much preferable to play the game with a keyboard so that you can actually pull these moves off the way they were programmed, rather than do it with a gamepad and just hope for the best. So that's all I've really got to say about the game. DOSBox settings are again really simple. Just set the cycles count to max, leave the graphics scalars off, and you're good to go. Nothing more to say really, so stay tuned for episode 20 of Ancient DOS Games. Seeing as how I have my 20th episode upon me, I'm going to be doing something special for that episode, beyond my usual gameplay duties. As for the hint as to what game it is, I have 2. The first hint is that this game is a sequel to one of the games I've already reviewed. The second hint is the game actually came with a several-page comic in its manual. I hope that's enough to go on, so make sure to send your guesses to adg@pixelships.com and tune in next Saturday for an Ancient DOS Games episode of epic proportions.